Hi there, my name's Larry Holcomb, aka Get To Know, and I'm here with Groove 3 to deliver this video series on the amazing Super 8 from Native Instruments. Now in this first video we're just going to introduce this series, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the interface, where everything's located, and also the ways in which we can load up Super 8. Okay, so what is Super 8 first of all? Well, it's a synthesizer which aims to capture the vibe and the essence of 80s era polyphonic synthesizers. So it's designed to try and capture that classic vintage polysynth sound. Now, Native Instruments have aimed to kind of marry that vintage polysynth sound with a really nice, clean, easy to use interface. And we're going to be talking about that interface in this video. So at its core, it's a 2-oscillator synth, and we have 4 different waveforms that can be mixed and blended for each oscillator. We have our usual suspects in terms of filter, amplitude, and various different modulation options as well. And also a modulation routing section down here alongside some effects. Okay, so that's the basic kind of vision of Super 8, and that's what we're going to be diving into throughout this video series. But before we do talk in more detail about where things are located, I just want to discuss a little bit how we can actually load up Super 8. Now, first of all, what we can actually do is just go straight to the folder and load up Super 8 like so. We can also load it up from within Komplete Kontrol and also from within Reaktor 6 as well. So we've got different options in terms of how we actually interact with the plugin. Now I'm just going to be using it as a standard plugin within Logic. Now if you're using a different DAW, just follow along within the DAW. I'm not going to be doing anything specific to Logic, so you can just apply the same techniques within your own DAW. Okay, so that being said, let's have a look at the interface. So what we're aiming to achieve here is just to understand where things are located, so when I talk about a different section, we're all on the same page in terms of where that's located and what it's called. And I'll also give you just a basic overview of the function of that section as well. Okay, so the first section is located up here and is the header. And above that we have the presets as well. So to choose a preset, we click on here and we get the types of presets, categories along the left here. So we want a mallet sound. That will then update to give us all the sounds which relate to mallets. We can also use these forward and back buttons to move through. And we can save a preset by clicking on this little save kind of floppy disk icon here as well. Okay, so beneath the preset area, we have our header. Now within the header, we have a global section which relates to tuning and also the playback mode. We also have a unison section here, which allows us to stack different voices, and we just have our volume, just located on the right there. Okay, the next section here is where our 2 oscillators are located. Now the oscillators are responsible for generating the sound within Super 8. And within this section, we can mix these raw waveforms to stack up our sound and create the kind of vibe that you're looking for. So this is where we set the harmonic content of the sound. Next up to the right, we have the filter. This is where we can sculpt the output of the oscillators, removing frequencies to exactly dial in the kind of timbre of the sound you're looking for. And we can also use modulators to move these parameters over time to create movement in the sound. Now, the amplitude section here allows us to set the volume of the sound and also how it responds to velocity. You can also set pan here as well. So moving down, the next section we have is pitch modulation. This allows us to add in pitch modulation. Next up we have 2 modulators here, which you can think of as being LFOs essentially. So they're waveforms which don't actually create any sound. They're just used to modulate parameters to create movement in the sound, like wah-wah effects, vibrato, tremolo, things like that. We then have a dedicated filter envelope, allowing us to move the filter over time using attack, decay, sustain and release parameters. And similarly, we have an amplitude envelope for doing the same for volume. So this allows us to set the volume of the sound over time. And if you've had any experience with any other synthesizers, you will have seen these already. Moving down, we have modulation and pitch bend, a visual representation of them here. And then we have our modulation routing. Now this is a flexible routing system that allows us to move things around within Super 8 to dial in exactly the sound we're looking for. And finally, down here we have an effects section. We have 2 effects units, the first one containing chorus, flange and delay, and the second one containing a reverb. Okay, so that just about covers it in terms of this first video. So just to recap what we talked about, we mentioned the kind of vision behind this plugin and also the ways that we can load it in using Complete Control and also Reaktor 6, or just as a standalone plugin as I've done here. We then went through the interface of the plugin, so I told you where everything was located, including this header section up here, the oscillators, filter, amplitude section, pitch modulation for changing the pitch over time, our two LFOs, or as they're called here, modulators, the filter envelope, the amplitude envelope, the pitch bend mod wheel, the flexible mod routing system, and then our two effects, Effects 1 and Effects 2. And as this video series develops, we're going to dive in and have a look at each section in more detail. And we're going to continue that in the next video, where we're actually going to jump in and start looking at the building blocks of the sounds within Super 8, which is our oscillators section 1 and 2. So I'll see you for the next video. Thanks for watching.